FLO has been selling residential and commercial electric vehicle charging equipment since around 2016. I've used and reviewed their first generation home units, the X5 and G5, and found them to be extremely high quality and very durable units. And they should be, because they were priced at the upper end of the market for home electric vehicle chargers. But now in 2024, FLO came out with a new line of electric vehicle chargers. There's more options, better specifications, more features, and lower pricing. So that's what we're going to do here today. I'm going to take a look at the entire new lineup of FLO home chargers and do my thorough review of the X6, which we have here. The X6 is a 50 amp Wi-Fi connected hardwired electric vehicle charger. So before we jump into the review, let's open the box and see what comes inside. All right, so everything's out of the box. But before we take a look at exactly what we have here, I just want to talk about FLO's new line of electric vehicle chargers. They have three chargers, the X3, the X6, which we have here today, and the X8. The X3 and the X6 are both 50 amp chargers that are basically the same, except for a couple small differences. Number one difference is the X6, as well as the X8, has a removable connector holster. We can remove this connector holster and mount it somewhere else in the garage if you want to remotely. We'll go over that a little bit later. That's the number one difference. Number two difference is the X6 and X8 have cast aluminum enclosures on the chargers. See this? It's all cast aluminum except for the very top. The very top is thermoplastic, and that's because the Wi-Fi antenna is located right near the top here. And the cast aluminum enclosures, and not just on the FLO chargers, but even with other brands like Grizzly, for instance, have had difficulty with the Wi-Fi connection being inside aluminum enclosure. It doesn't allow the signal to get out. And I know United Chargers had to make some changes in their the Grizzly because of that, because customers were complaining about it. And I know FLO didn't want to have that same type of an issue. So just the very top is thermoplastic. Okay, so the difference in the X3 and X6, you got the removable connector holster, so you can mount it remotely. The enclosure is aluminum, and you can also daisy chain with the X6 as you can with the X8. So you can share one circuit to up to 5 units. You don't have to bring in another circuit, which is, while it might not be you know, the biggest thing for the homeowner, it's a very good option to have for people that install these in apartment buildings and complexes where there's multiple users. Now, you might want to use it in your garage too. If you get 2 of these, you could just pull one 60 amp circuit and allow it to power both FLO units. So, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so that's the differences in the units. The X6 and the X3 are both 50 amp units, and the only differences of those three things we just talked about. The X8 is an 80 amp unit. Everything else about the X8 is the same as the X6. All of the features I just talked about, it has on the X8 is on the X6. The X3 is the entry-level version. That's a 50 amp charger. It costs a little bit less, and that's why it doesn't have those 3 features. But that's the only differences. So for this review, while we are going to really review the X6, you could really take it as a review for all 3, because there's very few differences in the units other than the higher power output of the X8, which is up to 80 amps. It would be like the Ford Charge Station Pro here that can deliver up to 19 kilowatts to an electric vehicle. The X3 and X6 can deliver up to 12 kilowatts because they're 50 amp units. Okay, that said, now let's take a look at what we have here. All right, as I mentioned, cast aluminum enclosure. This thing seems like it's built extremely well. The first generation of FLO chargers were all cast aluminum, both of them, and they were extraordinarily robust. They were some of the best made electric vehicle chargers that I've ever reviewed. They were very expensive, so you know, there's that. But if you wanted to buy a charger, install it outside, you know, it really didn't get much better than the first generation FLOs. And I expect this the X6 here to probably be on that level, but we'll see once I do the review. It is important to note that both the X6 and X3 are NEMA 4 rated. The enclosures are NEMA 4 rated. So the X6 being a cast aluminum doesn't get a higher weatherproofing rating than the X3, which has the thermoplastic enclosure. So, you know, it still has the same weatherproof rating, but it is thermoplastic. One of the things I'll notice straight out is it's got a nice long 25-foot cable, but this is one of the thinnest cables I've ever seen, particularly for a 50 amp unit. This might even be less than 14 millimeters. The Tesla wall connector, for instance, has an extremely thin cable, and it's like 14.5 millimeters. But this seems like it might even be a little bit thinner. We'll test that out later. No, actually, I'll do it right now. Hold on a minute. I'm curious to see how thin it is. So, no, I didn't get a good pull. 13.8 millimeter. So yeah, this guy is thin. We'll see how well it performs later in our cable deep freeze test, but the FLO cables always performed very well. FLO's made in Canada. A lot of their customers up in Canada where it gets really cold, so they always had really good cold weather cables, and hopefully this one does the same. Okay, so now let's take a look at what else we have here. These two pieces here, you'll only use if you were to remove the connector holster and remote mount it. This, say, cover here would go where the existing connector holster is to close in the front cover of the unit. And then this piece here is what you mount on the wall. And then you take this unit and mount it on that. So these two pieces here are for if you decide you want to remote your connector holster. Okay, in this little envelope here, we've got a security bit and a screw. This is to attach the body of the unit to the wall mounting plate. This is the wall mounting plate. It goes on the wall like this, and you've got 9 different holes here to secure it to, so you want to make sure you get it nice and secured. Once it's on the wall, the charger kind of hangs on the top and then swivels down. Once it's down, you'll see on the bottom there's a hole there. This screw here will go through this hole here and screw into the bottom of the unit here, securing it to the wall mounting plate. And you'll also notice on the back of this wall mounting plate, there's a hole here, and that's if you wanted to hardwire the unit through the wall. If you wanted a rear entry, you could also enter down here with your wires, and you could also do a side mount. Now there's no opening in the side of the unit, but FLO does give you this template here to show you exactly where you would drill a hole if you needed to do a side entry for your conduit to pipe in the power. That you'd use this. I would recommend against doing that unless you had to. You don't want to put any extra openings in this enclosure. Coming through the back, which is the best, and if you can't, coming through the bottom here. I'd really hate to have another opening on the side. It seems like extra work that you really just don't need to do. And you also have this quick installation guide, and then this here is for the app. This is a Wi-Fi connected smart charger that comes with an app, and this is how you pair the app to the charger. Here you scan this QR code, and down below here there's the charger network name and also a password. You need to keep this card. FLO has written on it, important, do not throw away, keep this card. So you're gonna wanna keep this. We'll go over that later when I pair the unit to the FLO app and show you the features that it has there. Okay, well that's it for the basic overall of what we have here in the box. Next, we're going to get into installing the unit. I'm going to mount this on the wall and hang it. I mean, it's really simple. As you can, I just went over it. Basically, you mount these on the wall and then you hang it and attach to one screw on the bottom. You're done. I'll get this thing up on the wall and then we'll open it up, take a look what's inside. But first, let's take a look at the FLO X6's key features. This video was sponsored by Qmerit. North America's premier installer of electric vehicle charging equipment. After I've helped you decide which electric vehicle charger you're going to buy, follow the link in the description of my videos and have Qmerit install it. And if you follow that link, Qmerit will waive the $150 installation deposit. But in order to have the deposit waived, you must follow the link in the description of my videos. As for the FLO X6's key features, it costs $749. The dimensions are 16 inches by 8¼ inches by 7½ inches. It's a 50 amp unit that can deliver up to 12 kilowatts to the electric vehicle. It has adjustable power output all the way from 6 amps up to the full 50 amps. It's available with either the J1772 connector or the North American Charging Standard connector. It has a NEMA 4 enclosure. It has an operating temperature of -40 degrees to -122 degrees, which is -40°C to 50°C. It's a Wi-Fi connected smart charger, and you can pair it with the FLO app. It can power share with up to 5 units. It is UL listed. It comes with a long 5-year standard warranty, and the unit is made in Canada. Next up, let's take a look at how to mount the X6 on the wall. Now, this would be the same if you had an X3 or an X8. The mounting procedure is identical for all 3 units. Now take a look here. This is the mounting bracket. Now I use this slot wall system here in state of charge so I can review multiple units, but what you would have done is just secured this plastic mounting plate to the wall. There's 9 separate holes for you to use to secure it tightly to the wall. Try to get a stud so that you really have this thing mounted tightly. You can use drywall anchors if necessary, but I always like really biting into some wood or a good aluminum stud to make it nice and tight, because the units are heavy and you're going to be yanking on the cable every now and then. So just make sure that is secured tightly. Once the mounting bracket is on the wall, you take the unit and you hook it on the top of the mounting bracket, and then it sits nicely on the mounting bracket. And then what you do is take that screw that I mentioned earlier with the security bit that FLO provides, and you simply screw this one screw into the bottom. It's all the way in the back, and that's where, let me see if I can get it in there. There we go. And that's how the unit gets secured to the mounting bracket. Okay, with the unit secured to the bracket, next step would be to hardwire it. And in order to do so, we've got to take off the front plate. So let's do that now. What you need is, and this isn't provided, the first thing you need is a 5mm Allen key. And there is a big thick screw on the bottom that you unscrew. See what it looks like there. And now you can lift off the entire front plate of the unit. Set this over here for now. Now once the front plate is off, you have to remove these 8 screws here in order to get the plastic cover off. And for that, you need a number 3 Allen key. So let me take these off now. Okay, once all the screws are loosened, you could remove this front cover. And now you can see the inside of the unit. So when you're hardwiring it, you're either going to come in through the plug on the bottom, there's a plastic plug here on the bottom, or through the back here. And if you noticed, the mounting bracket had a cutout right around this area here, so you could do a nice clean installation and bring your wires through the wall. I always prefer how that looks. It's a nice cleaner installation, but if you're not going to do that, you could do exterior conduit and pipe it in here. And then you're going to land your wires here. You would want to torque them to the manufacturer specification that's in the owner's manual. There's different torque amounts depending on what size wire you use. And obviously the X8, which is the 80 amp unit, is going to have different torque ratings than the X3 and the X6, which is a 50 amp unit. I believe the torque rating for this is a 45 inch-pound for the hot wires and 35 inch-pound for the ground. And that's if you're using a number 6 wire. But again, consult your licensed electrician. You should really have a licensed electrician do this installation for you, somebody that is proficient with electric vehicle charging equipment. The torque rating is very important with electric vehicle charging equipment. I go over this in many of my videos. I've seen so many units and outlets fail because the electrician didn't torque the connections to the proper torque. And that's all listed in the owner's manual. There's a whole list depending on what size wire and what unit you're going to use. And they even have the torque ratings for these 8 screws here. I think it's 25.5 inch-pound, and even for the screw on the bottom, they want a specific torque rating. So make sure it's all done correctly, and you won't have any problems. If electric vehicle charging equipment is installed properly, very rarely does anybody ever have a problem. When there's problems, it's because it wasn't done properly. Okay, and the last thing we want to go over when we're inside here is right here, you can see on this corner about midway up the unit to the left side, there's an internal dip switch. And that allows you to lower the maximum output that the unit can put out from 6 amps all the way up to the 50 amps that it can provide. Again, in the owner's manual, it shows you what dip switch setting will coincide with the power output that you want the unit to put out. Okay, while we have the unit open, let's talk about the remote connector holster option. Let me pull this over here. If you recall, I mentioned earlier that the X6, which I have here, is the metal enclosure. And one of the options that you have with the X6 that you don't get with the X3, you get with the X6 and the X8, is that if the connector holster is removable and you can mount it remotely somewhere in the garage if you don't want to connect right into the unit. So let's take a quick look on how you do that. First up, you need to remove these 4 Allen screws here in the back. And for that, you need a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench. They have all different, every screw on this unit seems like it's a different size screw. So let me take those things off first. Okay, after you remove those 4 screws, you'll see the connector holster, and this is metal also, this thing's heavy, comes off of the front of the plate. Now, I wasn't prepared. Let me step over here and get a couple of things. 2 things you need to do. First off, you don't want the front of your charger just to have holes in it. So FLO provides you with this plastic cover here that I'd imagine snaps in here. Yep, there you go. You just slide it in and pull it down, and now the charger is going to look like this. And you can set the remote connector holster wherever you want. And then you have this mounting bracket for the connector holster. This comes in, there's a screw on the bottom. That's right, I forgot about that screw. That screw also uses the 3 millimeter Allen key. So let me remove that really quick. You would only need to remove this screw here if you were going to remotely mount the connector holster. There's a little washer here too, so I'm going to make sure I don't lose that. So now, this is the mounting bracket, the wall bracket for the remote connector holster. This will slide in like this, I assume. Let me see. How's this go? Oh yeah, this goes on the bottom. And as you can see here, you would then attach the this to the wall first, and then this slides over like this, and then you use the 1 screw on the bottom to screw into the hole down here. And now you've got your connector holster for the wall. You can put it anywhere in the garage, and as you can see here, the connector slides in. And also, what I'm noticing now is the opening to this connector holster is tapered. I talk about this in a lot of my review videos. I don't like when the connector holsters seem to be the exact size of the connector, because you have to be perfect when you plug them in. If you notice, this has a tapered opening, so I almost seems like you don't have to be perfect. It's gonna connect. I like when you do that, because quite often, this seems like a little minor point, but you live with your EV every day. You're gonna you're gonna holster the connector many times a week, maybe every single day. And sometimes it might be dark in the garage, or you're in a rush. And if you have to be perfect to get it to stick in, it's kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. I like when they design these connector holsters like this, so that it just seems like you could just, as long as you get it close, it's going in, and it locks. The Grizzly connector holster does that also, from United Chargers. And this is a really good connector holster. I really like what FLO did here. These little things are the things that I focus on, that I think a lot of the companies that make these chargers don't really realize. They have an engineer design the opening so that the connector snaps in. But if it's not easy for you to holster it, it becomes really, a pain, and it takes away from the whole electric vehicle life. So yeah, so here's your remote connector holster. Put it wherever you want. I know a lot of people that have remote connector holsters will install their charger, say, on this wall, but then their connector holster on the wall on the side of their garage, because that's where their charge port is. So it can be literally, you pull your car in, you just grab the holster and plug it in, and it charges. But I mean, for that matter, you can install your charger over there also. But people like to, I've noticed in many instances, install their charger kind of in a universal location in their garage. So if they're parked over there one day, if they're parked over here one day, the cable will always reach. This long 25-foot cable should reach pretty much any location in any standard garage. 25 feet is the longest that you're allowed to have on an EV charger cable by code. Okay, well, that's pretty much all we have for the inside of the unit. I'm going to put this thing back together, and I'm going to start the cold weather testing. And I'm doing that specifically in this order with this review, because since this is a hardwired unit, I have to do the cold weather testing, where I deep soak it in the freezer for 24 hours before I hardwire it to the wall. With the plug-in unit, it's a little bit easier for me, because I can put the whole thing in the unit and then just plug it in. But with the hardwired units, it's a little bit more difficult for me. But I've been reviewing more and more of the hardwired units lately, because people want to see the reviews of the higher powered chargers. So it's a little bit more work for me, but I don't mind. So coming up next, we're going to do our cold weather testing. Okay, so the FLO X6 has been in this freezer for 24 hours now. Freezer's a very deep freezer. It goes well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at how cold it is right now. -14 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's been cold soaking for a full day now, and this is to represent if the charger was located outside overnight in cold winter. FLO is a Canadian company, so they do have a lot of customers in Canada, and it's part of the reason why, if you notice when I did the key features, the operating temperature of the units is -40 degrees Fahrenheit is the low end of that. Most chargers that I review here, the low end, the ambient temperature is -22 degrees. But because FLO's in Canada and a lot of their customers live in very cold weather areas, they're actually engineered the product to withstand colder ambient temperatures than almost all of the other chargers on the market. So this should perform well in cold weather. So let's check it out. Let's take her out. Oh, forgot my gloves. I usually put gloves on when I do this test. Right, I have the cable coiled up in these small loops as always. And now we'll see how well it unfoils and is how manageable it is in cold weather. Hold on a minute here. Here we go. Wow, that's cold. Now I know why I wear gloves when I do this test. Okay, so it's a thin cable, as we mentioned before, so that helps. The cable is a little stiff, but since it's so thin, you see how it's unfoiling? It's not remaining in those coils. Sometimes when I do these cold weather cable tests, the cable is like a spring. It just won't unfold, but this is working just fine. It is stiff, but because it's so thin, it's very easy to manage. So this is going to get a nice passing grade for cable flexibility. Now you will notice here, it's not really as floppy as some of the other cables that we test, whereas once they come out of the freezer, this will just flop back and forth. It's still stiff, the cable, but as I mentioned, it's not going to be difficult to manage. Because it's so thin, you can just bend it to your will. But this is staying pretty stiff here. This isn't, you know, ideal. You'd want this to just drape down and flop like some of the other cables we test here. So it's not going to get any extra points on the charger rater for cable flexibility, but it's not going to lose points because it's fine and perfectly workable. You see how it's still kind of retaining the circles that I put it in. It doesn't want to just flop like a warm cable would. Some of the cables that we test are so good that even coming out of the freezer, they still flop like they're at room temperature. So this will not get penalized, but it's not going to get any extra points. Next up, let me untangle this. We'll do the cold weather cable connector drop test. Because you will drop your connector from time to time if you own an electric vehicle, and if it's in the winter and you drop it on pavement, we want to make sure that it can withstand at least 5 drops from about waist high. So let's try those out now. That didn't count. It hit the cable, not the connector. Ooh, right on the edge. Was a good one. No problem. A little higher. Okay. None the worse from wear. There's a couple little chips on the plastic, but other than that, it held up well. The edges, you might be able to see a little chipped here on the edge, this little piece of plastic, but I mean, I dropped it right on the edge a couple of times. So that's fine. No problems at all. Passes the connector drop test. Now we won't do the cold temperature restart test. What I usually do at this point is plug the charger in and then make sure it charges the electric car. But I can't do that on the hardwired units like this because now I need to take it apart and hardwire it. I can't have it hardwired while it's in the freezer. So the hardwired units, I don't do the cold temperature startup test. But honestly, out of all the chargers, this one I'm least concerned with because of that ambient temperature rating that FLO has for it, which is way down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. It's also -40 degrees Celsius. That's where the Celsius and Fahrenheit meet, at -40 degrees. So I am certain that we're not going to have a problem with this charger for the cold weather. So I'm fine with skipping that one cold weather test. Next up will be the extreme heat test, but I obviously have to let this thing warm up a little bit and then put the heat lamp on it for a couple of hours to get the temperature up to around 120 degrees on the surface, and then we'll make sure that it works fine in hot weather. Okay, so I've defrosted the X6 and also hardwire it, so we're all powered up. I also paired it with the FLO app, which we'll get into a little bit later, and I put this heat lamp on the unit 2 hours ago. So it's been baking for 2 hours, maintaining a surface temperature of somewhere between 120 and 130 degrees. And what I'll do now is plug in my Rivian R1S while leaving the heat lamp on the unit for another 2 hours to make sure during that 2-hour period the X6 delivers the amount of power to the R1S that it's calling for, which will be the full 48 amps the vehicle can take in. So I'm expecting to get somewhere around 20, 21 kilowatt hour in that 2 hours delivered to the R1S by the FLO. If it's less, that means that the FLO is derating or shutting off because it's overheating. Let's take a look at how hot it is right now. 125 degrees. And I monitor this, and I sometimes have to move the heat lamp to make sure it's keeping that temperature. I want it between 120, 130 degrees for 2 hours straight to simulate if this was attached to somebody's house outside in an extreme hot weather area. Now, there's cold weather areas up in Canada. We talked about those earlier, but there's also a lot of extreme hot weather areas where people mount their chargers outside and they're baking in the sun all day. And we know that some chargers will overheat, they'll derate, or even shut off if they get too hot. So that's what we're hoping to test with the extreme heat test here to make sure the X6 doesn't shut off or derate. I'm going to plug in the R1S now. We'll check back in 2 hours. All right, so I left the heat lamp on for 2 solid hours, and the Rivian R1S did indeed charge at its full rate for the whole time, adding 21 kilowatt hour in the 2 hours that it was charging. Now, the surface temperature on the FLO got up to about 145 degrees. They always get a little bit hotter during the charging session because of the fact that there's internal heat resistance that creates heat even if you don't have a heat lamp on it. So the FLO passes the extreme heat test. Next up, we'll do the automatic restart test. Okay, I've pulled the Lightning into the garage, and now we're going to do the automatic restart test. With this test, I test to make sure that the charger starts charging the vehicle again after a power interruption. In the middle of the night, you might have a short power interruption, and I've noticed some of the chargers remain in a fault state and don't re-engage the vehicle and continue charging it. So you wake up and your car hasn't been charged, even though you might have just had a power outage for like a minute. So let's see how the FLO works. I'll plug in the Lightning. Oops. Another connector drop test, passed. We'll wait till it starts charging. There we go, we're charging. Now I'll shut the power off. You can see the lights out, the vehicle clicked, there's no power. I'm gonna wait a few seconds and then I'll turn power back on. We'll just make sure that the FLO re-engages the Lightning and continues charging it. That's good enough. Okay. The Lightning is making clicking noises. The X6 isn't yet. Let's see. All right, we've got pink light, so it's powering up. It's a little longer than some of the chargers we've tested here, but as long as it starts charging again, that's fine. Definitely a little longer than some of the chargers we've tested here. I've noticed some of them will start charging the vehicle again in like 4 or 5 seconds. But again, this doesn't matter as long as it starts charging the Lightning again. That's the big thing. Now I'm getting concerned. Let's see what happens. The Lightning's making a clicking noise, so maybe it's communicating with it. Okay, this is taking longer than it should, in my opinion. What I'll do is give it about a minute and then check back to see if it engaged. As a matter of fact, I'll cut out here and I'm going to leave it like here for like 5 or 10 minutes because maybe there's something within the FLO unit that if there is a power interruption, delays for a couple of minutes, but I'm going to give it a solid 10 minutes. Oh, and as I said that, now we've got blue light, but the vehicle is not charging yet. So let's see, it could just be that the FLO takes a while to power up. This is much longer than it takes most of the chargers that we test here. Okay, well, as I said before, I'm going to cut out for a second. I'm going to give this some more time to see if it starts charging the vehicle again. Okay, we're back. It took about another minute and a half after I cut out, but you can see the pulsating blue light, the Lightning. I don't know if you can see it on the video. It's got the charge port lights blinking. So it did begin charging the Lightning again. Took, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes or so, which is longer than what we typically see. But to be honest with you, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 5 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes for that matter. If you have a power outage, you just want to make sure that the charger starts charging the vehicle again. And the X6 did, so it will pass the automatic restart test. All three of FLO's new chargers are Wi-Fi connected smart chargers, which you can pair with the FLO app. And in doing so, you have access to your previous charging data. You could look at real-time charging statistics. You can also see how much it cost you to charge your electric vehicle. And it also allows you to have access control over the charger. Let's say you have the charger installed in a place where the public has access to it. You can simply turn off the charger within the app, really simply. And one of the features that it has that I think is really cool is if somebody tries to use the charger, you get a notification. And where I would see that would be useful is, let's say you have a friend that you allow use the charger. He can either text you ahead of time, or if he just starts using it, you get a notification and then you text him, say, hey, is that you? Yeah, it's me. Okay, I'll turn it on, and you could turn it on. That way only the people that you want to use it can use it. I know a lot of people have their chargers installed outside their house. It could be close to the street. And I've heard stories of people coming home from work and there's a car in their driveway plugged into their charger. So it does happen. It's good to have that access control. So it's good to get a point in our charger rater for the ability to do that. It pairs with the FLO app really easily. I already had the FLO app downloaded because I have used FLO chargers before, and I also use it for the public FLO network. The one app, like ChargePoint, you can use it to use public charging and also for your home charging equipment. The Electrify America app does that also. You can use it for their public chargers and also their home charger. So I already had the app, and I was very easy to add a second charger to it. So you can add multiple units if you have multiple units in your house. And that's a good feature, because one of the features that the FLOs have, they can daisy chain. They can share a single circuit to power multiple chargers. So that's really good. And I think you can load up to 6. I know that probably wouldn't be useful in a residential home like here, but you could certainly have 2. And one of the good things about it also is they don't have to be the same unit, which I've noticed with some other companies that allow daisy chaining. You have to have the same exact unit. I know Tesla had that with their wall connector. You couldn't use a Gen 2 wall connector and daisy chain it to a Gen 3. With these new FLO units, you can use any of them. The only limitation is if you have an X3, which is right here on the wall, it has to be the last unit in the daisy chain, but the other units can be anywhere. So that's a good feature. So let's first look at the app, how you add a charger to your FLO app. Okay, I mentioned that I already had the FLO app downloaded, but if you don't, you have to download it from the App Store first. Once you have it there, click on the plus symbol in the upper right-hand corner to add a charger. Once you're in there, you select the model that you have. Then you check to make sure the green light is lit, that you have power to the unit and the green light's on. That's important. Next up, you have to give the app permission to use your camera. Once you do that, that's when you grab the QR code from that sheet that comes with the charger and you scan it. Next up, you have to add some personal information like your address, and then you enter your Wi-Fi network and Wi-Fi password. I'm going to cover that up. After that, you have to hold the connector's release button for about 10 seconds. And that green light needs to change to a blinking orange light. Once it's changing to blinking orange, you can release it. And then the app finalizes the pairing, but it won't do it unless you hold that button until the light is blinking orange. And then in about 2 minutes, you're done. You've paired your charger and you're good to go. So I've been using the X6 for 2.5 weeks now to charge a variety of my electric vehicles, and it's worked flawlessly. I love the fact that it's got this super thin 25-foot long cable, which is the longest you can get to code. The connector is okay. I preferred their previous generation connectors, and the funny thing about it is when you look at some of the marketing materials, FLO says that they switched to this connector because the feedback said that people didn't want a rubberized on the connector, and I disagree with that. I think it was a perhaps a cost-saving measure, but it's not a bad connector at all. There's nothing wrong with this connector, but I like the previous generation connectors better. I really like this connector holster. I mean, even on the X3, it's a nice connector holster. It's easy to holster the connector, but the fact that the X6 and X8 allow you to remove it and locate it remotely, that's really fantastic. This is a super sturdy, very well built unit here with the aluminum enclosure. The plastic enclosure on the X3 is fine. They're both NEMA 4 rated, which means they have excellent weatherproof rating. As I mentioned, the ambient temperature goes way down to -40 degrees. FLO has a lot of customers in Canada, so this would make a really good choice if you're going to be installing this outside and you live in a cold weather area. The cable is pretty flexible. As you saw in the video, it's not top notch, but it's good. It's up there. It's, you know, in the top 25% for sure. And it's so thin and easy to maneuver that this is going to be very easy for you to live with daily. I like the form factor of it. I like the fact that the X6 comes in 2 colors, deep silver as I have here, but it also comes in absolute black. The X3 and X8 only come in absolute black, but all 3 models have the option of either the J1772 connector or the NACS connector, and you can get the X6 and X3 as either a hardwired unit or with a NEMA 1450 plug. The X8 will only come as a hardwired unit because you can't plug in an 80 amp charger. I like that manufacturers give you all these different options. I mean, you can select your color, you can select your connector, you can select your power input. I like the fact that it has access control within the app. That's really important for some people. For others, it really doesn't matter, but it is important for some people. Overall, this is a very high quality unit. One of my, if I'm going to make any type of complaints about it, is it still is priced at the upper end of the market. $749 is not inexpensive for a 60 or 50 amp charger. It's really at the top of the price chain. Now, it is a super high quality unit, and I know a lot of people say you get what you pay for. But it's a couple $100 more than what I find on the market as sort of comparable units. So you have to decide if you want to pay for, let's say, beautiful design and the features that this have. There are other chargers on the market that are a couple $100 less that'll charge your car just as fast, just as quickly, and are very high quality chargers as this. If you would ask me to decide which unit to select, I'd probably go with the lower cost X3 here, only because it's $150 less and it really doesn't have that much less to offer. I would get a remote connector holster if I want to remotely install my connector. You can buy them online for like 15 bucks, so I would just buy a second one and do that if I wanted to do that. Still NEMA 4 rated, so it's you know, it's not like you're sacrificing weatherproof rating, but this guy here is, I mean, it's built like a tank. This is built fine too. The only thing I will point out is when I remove the cover, and when you remove the cover, you just pull it off. Unlike the, let me see here. Unlike on the X6 where you have to remove the screw and you just pull it off. The second time I did it, one of these tabs broke off. So that's one thing to note, that you know, on the second pull the plastic broke. But don't forget, this is just a cover. This is what protects the inside of the charger, this secondary cover with the 8 screws. This is just for looks. So that's really not a big deal at all, but it is noteworthy that the little plastic tab broke. You won't get that with the G6. So you do pay a little bit more and you get some good quality. Okay, so next up, all we really have to talk about is my ratings. And for that, first, let's go to the charger rater. Okay, in the cost and value category, it's going to lose 3 points because it costs more than $700. As far as value goes, while I really like this charger, I'm going to give it -1 point for below average. As far as value goes, that says nothing about how I feel quality-wise with the unit. It's just that for the price, there are other chargers out there that are similar that cost less. So it's going to finish the cost and value category with 11 points. For power and weatherproof rating, it's going to get 2 points because it can deliver up to 50 amps. As far as adjustable power, I went over that. It's going to get 1 point. There's an internal dip switch that allows you to derate the unit. For the extreme heat test, it passed, so it's going to get a point. Weatherproof rating, it has a NEMA 4 rating, so it's going to get 2 points. It is an Energy Star unit, and it passed our automatic restart test. So it's going to finish up the power and weatherproof rating category with a very strong 23 points. For construction and durability, I'm going to give it 1 point for the connector and holster. I initially had it at 0 because I don't love this connector, but then I remembered that the holster is really good, particularly the fact that FLO came up with this unique way to have it removable and relocate it. So it's not going to get excellent, but it is going to get an extra point because I think it's good. So 1 point there. Cable length, it gets 2 points because it's a 25-foot cable. And as far as cable pliability, I decided to give it 1 point for good because it definitely is better than average there. So you're getting a point. And for robust construction, it's going to get a point for excellent because the X6 is absolutely built like a tank, and FLO has a reputation for building very high quality chargers, and this did not disappoint. It's extremely well made. And for movability, it's not going to get a point because it doesn't have a quick release or a locking mechanism to let you take it off the wall quickly. It's going to finish up the construction and durability category with 20 points. For smart and non-smart, gets 2 points because it's a Wi-Fi connected smart charger. It's going to get a point because it's power share capable. It is not Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant compatible, so no points there. For access control, it's going to get 2 points because you can do that within the app. For charging record data, it's going to get a point because it does store your charging record data. You can look back and see how much you charged and how much it cost you. And for OCPP compliance, I've had to change this category. I've always had OCPP compliance, but basically that was based on whether the unit complied with OCPP or not. But now that we've seen some issues in the industry, particularly with NL leaving the market, and even though their units were OCPP compliant, you had to do it through their software. So the way this rating is going to go from now on is if the OCPP compliance goes through the native app, the software that the company makes, and you can't direct it to a different app, then you're not going to get points for this. Matter of fact, you're going to lose 5 points. So the unit's taking a big hit here, and that's because I'm taking this topic very seriously. -5 points there. It finishes up with the smart and non-smart category with 16 points. For safety certified and warranty, it gets no points because it is safety certified. You can only lose points if you're not safety certified. And for warranty, it comes out strong. FLO has a 5-year standard warranty. That is just about the best in industry, so it gets 5 points there. It finishes up the safety certified and warranty category with 20 points. And that gives the FLO X6 a total of 90 points on our charger rater. And when I convert that to a 5-star rating, it's 4.5 stars out of 5, a very good score, especially since it took that hit with the -5 points on the OCPP compliance. And when I convert that to our 5-star rating, the X6 finishes up with 4.5 stars out of 5. I then add my own personal score and average the two for the final score of the chargers. And this is one of those instances, one of those rare instances, I think, where I agree with the charger rater's score. And I'm going to give it a 4.5 star rating also, so it will finish up with 4.5 stars out of 5. I really like the X6. I like all the new chargers in FLO's line, actually. I think they made big upgrades over their initial chargers, which were good units in their own right, but they were low powered. They only delivered 30 amps. They used PLC connection for their app, not Wi-Fi connection. And I had a lot of problems even setting it up when I originally did my FLO review because it was conflicting with another PLC device that I have in my house. I like that FLO went to Wi-Fi connection. I like the form factor of the charger. I like this nice big wide cable holder here. The cable's not going to flop off. FLO did a lot right with these new chargers, and the X6 is going to be one of my recommended chargers for sure. But there's two things that in particular that bother me. Number one's the price. It is a little high. It's as I mentioned earlier, it's a couple $100 more than some competing products on the market that are very good chargers in their own right that offer very similar features to what the X6 offers. But this is a very high quality unit, so I know there's going to be people out there that say, look, I want that, I'll pay a little bit more for it because it's a top quality unit, and it is a top quality unit. That's one thing. And the second thing is the whole OCPP compliance issue. And I'm going to be hard on the chargers that I review from now on. Unfortunately, FLO is the first one that I've reviewed since I did this change, and since we saw what happened when a company decides that they're going to pull out of a market and shut down, and all their customers that have the chargers all of a sudden don't have an app and don't have app functionality. Now that's getting worked out because other companies are taking over, but I like the fact that there are some companies out there that allow you to direct the charger itself to a different app. You can do that yourself. You don't need anybody else to come in and save you. So the companies that do that are going to benefit in my scoring here for sure. So I hope FLO considers that down the road. You know, for now, very few companies do that. So I'm not singling out FLO. Most all the companies want that to go through their software and control and have that data. But hopefully things will change. This market has been evolving. These chargers have been changing. I've been reviewing them for many years now, and my scoring system has had to constantly change because the chargers and the market's changing. And this is a big change. I'm going to have to go back and rescore some of the other chargers that I've done, so the scores on the Chargerator and my final score are fair, comparing apples to apples. But a 4.5 star rating out of 5 is actually an excellent score, especially when you consider that it lost 5 points because of the whole OCPP issue that has come about recently. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have on the FLO X6 review. And it's time for my hits and misses. On the hits category, I love the robust aluminum enclosure that the X6 and X8 has. I like that these units power share, and I like the fact that they have a lot of options. And as for the misses, I can't ignore the fact that they are priced at the upper end of the charger market. I do prefer the connector they used on their first generation chargers, and also the fact that these are OCPP locked, forcing you to go through FLO's software. All right, well, that's all I have here today on the FLO X6. I really like this unit. I like the X3. I haven't really had a chance to review the X8, but it's pretty much the same charger except higher powered, so I'm sure that I'm going to like it just the same. FLO makes very high quality chargers. You pay for it because their pricing is a little bit higher than what the industry average is, but they do offer a really good warranty. That 5-year warranty is something that you really have to consider, and it could have made my hits list, but I already had 3 things that I wanted to talk about. But you know, you almost feel like you're getting that extra value because some of the other chargers on the market that are a couple $100 less, they'll sell you an extra 2 years on top of their 3-year warranty, but you pay an extra $100 or $200 for it. So FLO kind of says, look, we're going to bundle that into the price. You're going to pay for it, but you're going to get the security of a 5-year warranty, and that's a pretty good deal. Now listen, if you're interested in buying the FLO X6, I'm going to have a link in the description of this video for you to purchase it. I do earn commissions on sales, a very small commission, but I want to be completely transparent. I do that with all my chargers. When I offer links, I do get a small affiliate commission. And I do state that at the bottom of the description of the videos. Listen, I also wanted to point out one more thing. I started a new website. It's called evchargingstations.com. I'm going to have all of my charger reviews there. I'm still building it out, so it's not fully functional yet, but we're going to have charts and graphs. We're going to have buyer's guide for electric vehicle chargers. You're going to be able to compare chargers. Right now here on State of Charge, it's kind of hard to compare chargers because each review is just kind of its own standalone video. But on this site, you're going to be able to scroll down and compare features and so forth, and then also purchase the charger directly from that site. So you might want to bookmark evchargingstations.com if you think you're going to be in the market for chargers at some point in the near future. I also post all charging news there. It's not a general electric vehicle news site. It's a news site for EV charging. So all the articles there were just on EV charging. So you might want to just check that out. And as I said, bookmark it. Listen, I hope that this review helped you decide if the FLO X6 is the right charger for you. If this is your first time here at State of Charge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.